Maysville County Joint Planning Commission is now in session. Roll call, George.
David Reed.
Here.
John Hutchins.
Here.
John Best.
Here.
Reggie Rosser. Reggie Phillips.
Here.
Gerald Woods. Here. Rick Lawrence. Here. Michael Parker. George Barger. I'm here. Michael Clark. Here.
If you don't have any old business, new business, Mason County Conservation District proposed new agricultural districts, existing agricultural districts amended.
All right. So it's been a while since we've gotten anything from the Mason County Conservation District. As you all may know, it's required that they send us any petitions for new agricultural districts. I think it's only for proposed new districts, but they usually send us any petitions for amendments to existing districts, and they usually ask for your input for recertification of existing districts, which they're required to do recertification every 5 years. With your packets, there are petitions for 4 new agricultural districts and a petition to amend an existing agricultural district. Generally, you all don't really have much to say about them.
We haven't in the past, we usually just ask you to send a thank you.
Yeah, just a thank you and a thumbs up.
Informational purposes.
Right.
Yeah, the statute requires conservation districts share those with certain bodies. Joint Planning Commission is one, but the statute doesn't say anything about any required response. So.
Yeah. And I will add, I don't know if this has been outright stated or it's strongly suspected. I think the petitions for these, it has something to do with legal issues related to, the data center and effort we're putting together here. I think it's like a thought to protect against eminent domain. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's really a legal issue. You guys do must be planning and zoning. If you want my opinion, if their land, the applicant's land, is eligible to be an agricultural district, why shouldn't they be? As a matter of fact, the city has an agricultural district within its limits. There's city land that surrounds county land that's still an agricultural district. So, agricultural land, if they want to protect it that way, why not? Also, it provides one of the stronger protections, is that land within the boundary of an agricultural district shall not be annexed, which I don't think the city. There is one of the petitions is within a mile of city limits. So I gave the city manager the petition, and he looked through it, and I asked him if he was concerned about it. He said no, the city has no opinion on it.
I don't think we have any opinion
Okay. So y'all just want me to contact Samantha and thumbs up and say no comment, wish him well?
Yep.
All right.
Thanks for the information.
Okay, next on the agenda is the data center zoning text amendment proposal.
Okay, so you guys have draft 2 of the data center zoning text amendment proposal. I made the changes that you all requested. The only change I didn't make that you all seemed neither hot nor cold on was just sort of partially eliminating the development plan chapter and just saying refer to the development plan chapter that's in the zoning code. I can do that if you all want. It's pretty similar. I can do that.
I had just a couple of comments on page 1. The new definition regarding sensitive use. I think that we ought to clarify that those are sensitive uses that add some language about them being in existence and occupied or utilized as such at the time filed for section. And clarify that we don't have a situation, again, going back to our discussion of last meeting, we don't want to protect against sensitive uses that move to a nuisance, so to speak. I think that if you are inclined to protect sensitive uses, they ought to be ones that are in existence at the time an application is made, so that way any potential developer can plan around them, as opposed to having something ambush them once that new use is in place. And then on page 2, under where it says at least, and George has left the distance blank because you all will vote on that at some point, at least blank feet from a sensitive use. I think we ought to clarify from what point that is measured, because it's kind of it's an open-ended question the way it's written, and we'll polish all that up. We need to make additional changes, but I think that's something that at least I'd like to see cleaned up.
I guess we start at the beginning, like we did last time. Is there any new, since we've done our visit, is there anything new that we want to add to the definitions other than what's proposed here in done?
Michael Parker suggested making a definition for data center campus. I wasn't convinced that was necessary, but if you guys want to do that.
What did he want to propose?
He just proposed that maybe it could be useful. What do you guys think it could be? I mean,
Instead of just saying data center, what was something else you're saying?
yeah, but I'm not sure if that or if it would add. I don't know. It's up to me.
Well, we kind of have it broke out by the principal structure and accessory structural use.
Right, and things like setbacks are generally from they're defined in Kentucky state law as being from structures or anything attached to structures. And we define data center accessory use / structures in there.
Are there any other changes that we think we need to make in first section definitions?
Just what Michael mentioned in regard to the sensitive uses at the time of the application.
That'll better clarify things. Permitted zoning districts. We need to change anything there. It's going to change to I3. Specific use criteria. Setback. Since your visit, is there anything we need to change or add into that?
Yeah. Well, you should probably go section by section. That's setbacks if you want to do that. You guys, I put XXX where any numbers would go. This is probably a good time for you to talk about. Do you want more setbacks? They were more complicated in the solar energy systems ordinance, but of course that was a more irregular land use. Then there's the ones we have there. Sensitive uses, outer perimeter property. I had 250 in there earlier. But
Well, I think the principal structure would be one thing, but if we have something that's making noise, those setbacks might need to be increased a little bit.
What are they for typical I3?
200.
yeah, so I think the largest one for I3. Let me take a lot lower than that. For I3, it is front 100 feet, 50 in the sides, and 50 in the rear. That was pretty consistent for the urban industrial zone. We can come back to that if you guys want to think.
Again, your initial was 250.
250. How about sensitive use areas?
Yeah, Mr. Clark was alluding to, I guess we need, I think we could definitely add more to that.
You know, I would think your choices there would be from the boundary line of the property of the sensitive use, or you could measure it from the closest structure on the sensitive use. I think that's I would think that those would be your two main, those are the two options that kind of spring to mind.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to say whether or not it would be from a property line or a structure, because some of the sensitive uses aren't really focused on structure, like playgrounds, parks, campgrounds. Some are, or most of the others are.
It'd be the boundary line of the park or the playground, wouldn't it? Be just like a structure.
What structure
Unless
does?
the park goes continuous. But I mean, a playground would have a boundary, same as a structure would.
Right, the property lines, the structure may not be directly on the property line, whereas the
Right.
playground would probably go directly to the property line. So I
Well, if
think-
that's the case, yeah.
Right, that's why I would think we would probably want to measure it from the property line to the sensitive use back.
Give them a little more buffer that way.
And that way, yeah, then they can situate their building however far away from their property line.
We worked with the first one from outer perimeter property lines. What if we did 200 there and we did 350 on the sensitive use? Almost double that space.
To meet the sensitive use property line.
Right. They give significant more clearance.
Michael sent me he's not here because he has the flu, but he sent me an email. He said the minimum of 250 setback unless the parcel abuts up to a sensitive use, whereas I think we should be looking at 500 feet or even larger.
500 feet what?
Or even larger, or bigger. So that was his use.
So what was your proposal, Rick?
2 and 350.
2 and 350?
I think that's reasonable.
I think 350 is enough on sensitive use.
To the property line, yeah. So there's going to be setback beyond the property line in this case.
But you could always go a little more complex. If you wanted to go that complex.
So this is just the data center property line boundaries.
It'd be like a shared property line.
Right, okay.
So the suggestions to look at the example we had up at Lockwood, where you've got the 3 schools on the back side of that data center, where you've got a good 200 going out, and then there's 350. They didn't seem to have any issues with that. And there's 3 schools on the same property. Yeah.
Where was that, Rick?
At the Lockbourne data site, where you had the 3 schools that were across from the back.
Yeah.
There were 200 foot between to the property line, and then they were set back another probably 350 feet to the very first school.
Right. Is that what we want to put in there?
Yes, I'm good with it.
So
Everybody good with that?
So we're defining it, that's what Michael said, so at least, what, 350 feet from the property line of the sensitive use.
Sensitive use.
Right.
So then,
And then sensitive use reverts back to the first.
350, and then just the first one is 200. Yeah. I'll put that in. All right. What else? You guys do we need to have any other setbacks or anything?
What do you mean by any other setbacks? So, thinking.
Well, for example, in the solar energy system, we talked about setbacks from waterways or anything like that. But the reason why that was in there is because this will be more of a more conventional land use. The reason why it was more complex for solar energy systems is because you were putting solar panels in the middle of properties that were zoned ag. So they wanted, the Planning Commission wanted setbacks from waterways and sensitive areas and all that kind of stuff.
And keep in mind that there are also going to be berms, landscaping requirements that if you're on a roadway, they're designed to, like Mr. Shaw said, they're designed for line of sight from a moving motor vehicle. So I don't know that setbacks from a roadway would be as much of a concern. That's what the landscaping in large part is for.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be like a more conventional site than fitting utility scale SES on multiple agricultural land.
An example of what we saw, a finished project of both the Amazon and the Meta site up there. Amazon had probably 200 cars in the parking lot, but the berms were built when you drove down the road, you couldn't see them. They were covered. On the Meta site, which was across the street, they'd actually built a lake and used the refuse from the lake to build the berms to create that. So it had, and the lake was also part of the buffer from the road going in, so it was very nicely done. And you got two things you're looking at. One is under construction, which is very different, but the finished product is
So we're good with what we got happening right now? Where necessary to comply with the noise limits provided by noise section at the exterior property, perimeter property boundary, due to site configuration, topography, you okay with that? Setbacks for the noise too.
I mean, you guys don't even need to have that in there if you don't think it's necessary. That's something I.
Well, we got a noise section.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can take that out if you want.
I think we should take it out since it's already covered.
structure height. I didn't see anything that exceeded the 75 feet.
Chances are, I think that's like 5 or 6 stories.
Yeah. Most of these are 2.5, and maybe the water tower 3.5 or something, but it was not, did not exceed that.
And you know,
And that height restriction don't pertain to like power line towers, that kind of stuff. Or is this just for the structure?
I don't think they do. There is an exception in the zoning code that talks about like necessary structures that are like on the tops of buildings. But when it comes to electrical infrastructure, I don't think that would generally apply. But are you talking about something that's just inherent to the site?
Well, they're going to, yes, they're going to be bringing power. I don't know what kind of towers or how they're going to bring them in, but they got to get power up.
not sure if those would be part of like the utilities infrastructure. Just to see what I mean.
Because they'll have towers to get it to the site.
Yeah.
Once we solve it, got it to the site.
Yeah, once,
we brought
so
it
that
down
goes down.
to the substation. And then most of that power feed is underground after the fact.
Yeah, I don't know that any of that would be but
Anything on top of the building, what about that? Would that be excluded?
if it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's not part of the structure, but it's a ancillary feed to it.
Yeah, because we have, these height limitations shall not apply to church, spires, belfries, cupolas, or domes not used for human habitation, nor to chimneys, ventilators, skylights, water tanks, parapet walls, cornices, radio or television towers, or necessary mechanical appurtenances usually carried above the roof level, provided that such features are limited to the height necessary for the proper function. So,
And none of the sites even had cellular on them, cellular phones. Non-existent, those 4 sites.
What about those cooling towers that we saw, or that, not the water towers, but those cooling towers are.
Yeah, it's still less than 75 feet.
Yeah, but I don't know, I mean, would that be considered under the data center? I mean, no structure on any data center shall exceed the maximum. I mean, I just wanna make sure that that's actually included in data center, so we don't get stuck with these larger structures that.
So are you saying something should go in the data center accessory use / structure definition that's not there?
Well, I think it should maybe be included in the structure height, because right now it says, I'm just saying no structure on any data center shall exceed the maximum structure that is high.
Well, if it's necessary, then it would probably fall under the exception.
Right. So those cooling towers were.
If they really need to, they can apply for variance too.
True. But I just want to make sure those were included in the 75 feet. Those types of structures are included in the 75 feet. Although they don't technically have, the actual storage management, processing, and transmission of digital data in that building. They're a structure outside of that building, but I don't want them to have a much of a not allowing them to go out.
Yeah, it's part of it. Unless it qualifies for the exemption, it would be part of the requirement of it being less than 75 feet. And did you want me to add language reiterating that exemption that I read out?
I defer to council if we need to duplicate that or not. Seems pretty specific to me, but it needs to be in more than one category or one paragraph.
I don't think we need to say anything else.
Okay.
So we're good on structure height, 75 feet?
Yep.
Parking? We have to cover anything on parking during construction? Is that,
No, I don't think the parking really deals with construction, because that's, parking is there to make sure that there is enough parking developed for employees and clients or people visiting the site.
what I'm asking is, do we need to have something in here during construction? This is gonna be a 10-year project.
Like to specify where construction parking should be.
Well, I
within
mean,
the property boundaries.
if it's a hindrance to the community,
Right, I see where you're coming from, for
you
sure.
know what I mean?
Yes, make sure they're parked within appropriate.
Appropriate areas
in their
where
plan,
it's
yeah.
minimal disruption to the community.
Yes.
with lights at night, and I'm sure they're gonna work 24/7.
Being in the way in general, yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, what do you imagine would be a disruption? Because, you know, where...
Term change.
Was that?
Term change at night. Yeah, shift change. Even during the day.
I mean, you're not really, there's no place anywhere nearby. If it's gonna be an I-3, there's really no place else nearby they could park. What I care most about is that they park on the property.
Yeah, that's kind of what, yeah.
But you can't park on the street or in the road right
Right.
away. You know, and you can't.
Can't park on other people's property without their permission.
Right.
And you'd have to, you'd have to have a loading docks or something, because bring the truck in and load it on the property, into the property.
Well, and that's covered in parking, and that's another thing too, is I was thinking about this while I was making changes, is that 410.4, I think that's just the one that talks about the minimums, and I was thinking about one second.
Chapter 410.3.
Yeah. Thank you. So there's actually more to the parking. Or just to make sure they met the minimums. The thing about this is that it doesn't apply to like A1 and A2, which is most of the county. So it's mostly for the city of Maysville. So there's a lot of stuff here that would make sense in the city of Maysville, but it's not going to make sense in an industrial park out in the county. That's why I said just 410.4. But if you wanted, there could be some more standards.
Business plans would require them to have oncoming shift overlapping the outgoing shifts. So you've got that definition there, and then your loading facilities. It all, by definition, take care of itself.
And 410 does include loading in other areas. So, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to have enough parking even for, during shift changes, because they can't park in the roadway, and they can't park on the property.
And you got that setback, so they wouldn't be near the road anyway.
Right. So I'm not sure that we need that.
Just asking.
Okay. Does anybody disagree? Because we can put that in.
Okay. Lighting.
Examples of lighting we saw on the other side, where everything is getting accomplished as far as the power units and everything, and fencing around and all. And the only lighting that was observed was designed to build that way.
Yeah, I'm assuming that a private company is not going to waste time developing lighting that's going to blast out into properties.
They're trying to protect that fence line where their equipment is.
And even then, the lighting section is robust, I think. It's mostly for parking lots and making sure that there's no light trespass from those. And we've changed it a little bit recently to make sure that it addresses flashing lighting. But you know, there's also going to be screening, both natural and man-made. You don't think?
It seems sufficient.
Yeah, that would be sufficient. If you're looking at, rural things a lot closer to that. And there's nothing like 30 meters second for
Okay.
Okay. Buffering and screening.
The only change I made to this was referencing the sensitive use. instead of getting rid of, said residence, school, place of worship.
So revert back to the other paragraph.
I cobbled this section together from the already. Are you all satisfied? There was something that Kimberly Horn said, it was already kind of in there, use of existing vegetation for landscaping is strongly encouraged and approved by the planning commission, may be substituted for new burn plantings. And I think that's appropriate. There's no reason for any developer to create a berm or just cut down a bunch of trees and put, And then it says that, the owner and or operator needs to maintain those, so they can't just let a bunch of trees down the place.
Okay, so you satisfied there? Perimeter fencing and security.
The only thing I had there was, I think it's best to have the buffering and screening outside of the fencing, because it kind of, security fencing on the outside, buffering and screening kind of almost defeats the point. Well, what's there? There's 10-foot security fencing and a bunch of razor wire. So it kind of gets in the way of the buffering and screening. Was that consistent with the site you guys did?
Yeah.
I figured it would be.
And then when you get into
I would imagine these types of sites are high security, so they're going to want to keep people out and keep things hidden.
One good thing about our trip is we visited 4 sites and we were able to see the construction, final product. And it really led you through that construction process of what to, and then provided the landscaping and everything. Obviously during construction is different, but the final product is what we were concerned.
Noise.
With this one, I got rid of that noise analysis. I think that was a good call by Kimberly Horn. She just combined everything in one section called noise. You guys want to talk about the noise limit?
Yeah.
Those are just the same since the first draft.
Do you feel that those are adequate?
Well, in our trip, we actually used software to measure. And we walked right up to the fence line. And on the Lockwood one, where the 3 schools were behind, we actually went on the school property and measured on the school property. And nothing exceeded this. And
I'll add that Michael said that we have listed 9 a.m. to 7 a.m., then 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. as being 2 different time slots. Should y'all look to adjust 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. is 55 dBA. Areas. You said the Kentucky Resource Council ordinance mentioned 40 dBA, which seems really low. I can't say
so did you see that when you did the measurement?
Oh, I wanted to, I should have brought this up when we were talking about setbacks. Michael said he likes section 8.3 in the Kentucky Resource Council model ordinance. It talks about emission points or exhaust stacks being kept further back and in the interior. Could you repeat that, George? He said that Michael Parker said that he likes section A3 about emission points or exhaust stacks being kept further back and in the interior, so that they're not out in the periphery of the site, but more centralized, so they'd be further away.
Stacks from generators and that sort of thing.
With just anything that seems like, smoke or particulates coming out.
We saw none of that. Just not on that, we didn't see it. Even the final product where they're operating, it wasn't there.
Okay. Something to think about.
I mean, we say in buffering and screening about, when you use drive for a data center, producing air, dust, smoke, flare, exhaust, heat, or emitting any form of chemical emission in on such a manner that is not perceptible at or beyond data center's expected boundaries. So I think that kind of covers that.
So just to be clear, only David and you got copies of Michael's comments. You did not send them out to the university.
He just sent them today. I thought that was. He got the relevant sections, but I got This is something he wrote up and it took him a while to do it while he was sick.
And just for the record, Michael did go with us on the trip, so he's speaking from the same experiences that we had.
What about the census areas? Do we want to change any of those limits?
You mean in terms of noise or background?
No.
You guys are next. I did mention a little bit of math in my staff report that if you've got a setback that's a certain distance, and then the next property over also has a significant setback, not because it's required to, but just because the house or other sensitive use is hundreds of feet away from a property line. It reduces the sound. Now, I mentioned that was for perfect laboratory conditions, that existing topography, screening, and wind makes that a lot more complicated to calculate, but something.
Well, one of the measurements we did do while we were at the meta site is we were at the perimeter fence, and we had about a 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing across the facility into our faces, and it didn't affect the noise at all.
Okay.
So it wasn't carrying any offensive noise coming through at all.
Good to know.
So we're good with what we have written here?
I think so.
Is that just the table, or you guys, are you all satisfied with the language of the section?
I'm satisfied with it.
Yeah, I like the pre-construction information. So, yeah, I'm satisfied.
Covers that.
So we're good with all what George added in?
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is just from the other section that I did.
All right, I guess we're down to design standards.
Actually, generator and testing requirements, that was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Generator testing requirements.
This was something that Kimberly Horn mentioned should probably be in there. So the KRC model line. So that was really useful.
Yes. And just as a matter of record, the tier 4 is the current state of the art anyway. We wouldn't be going less than that.
Which eventually it might be a higher tier that says, or the highest environmental protection association, industry standards available at the time. So we don't have to keep updating.
Yep.
But as Mr. Shaw said, these places can't go down, so they have backup generators, and that allows them to test them.
anything in there that, East Kentucky's not up and running, they're up and running? We ain't got generators running 24/7. Supply power, other than through emergency or, yeah, outage.
I don't know, you don't think? I mean, it'd probably be a rare occurrence.
Well, I don't know.
Um,
I mean, at one time, we could probably get all these parts we need, but today's, might be working on something that we should with it. Yeah, sounds very good. Well, it kind of covers except for generator testing and commissioning activities. Shall be limited to backup and emergency use only.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was reading over and over again.
But, I mean, so David, are you talking about when there's just an extended outage?
No,
No?
I'm talking, East Kentucky's building a unit,
Mhm.
data center's being built, data center's finished, East Kentucky's not. And they want it up and run.
Well, it says continuous generator use outside of power outages
Right.
or interruptions is prohibited. So, I think it's
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I can't fathom a launch without that in place.
Makes sense.
And according to this, illegal.
Right. I think we're covered.
All right, design standards. Anything we need to add there, change?
I think the reason why the accommodate adequate parking's in there is, so technically you say you have to have a minimum, you need to meet your parking minimums, but designing the site, I don't think you want to have all, you've got your primary structure here. You've got a structure over here that's going to have a few personnel. You should have parking over here too. It shouldn't just all be in this one space. And then people just hoof it all the way over there. So that's what I think.
And all the sites have a queuing area for people coming in, checking in, trucks coming in there, and they were pulled off the road, they were queued in the system.
What about the language, the equipment used in a data center or data center accessory use structure shall be housed in meter, electric, and grounded, pre-engineered metal encased structure? I mean, everything in there has got to be in a metal encased structure?
I think that's just basic building codes. Everything has to be fire rated.
Well, yeah, it has to be fire rated, but this talks about pre-engineered metal encased structure.
And they will all have to match federal and state policy.
I mean, we could change that if you want. I actually don't recall where
Well, I'm just asking to clarify, what does it mean? Does everything in the building have to be in a metal encased structure?
do you want it to be.
I don't.
There's a question for the engineer.
I think that was one from one of the model ordinances. I'm really more concerned with an electrical fire.
incorporate appropriate erosion control and stormwater management practices. Is there any place that specifies what those practices are?
I don't call it for the lot here. So later it says an erosion control section / stormwater management plan compliant with any stormwater quality measures. Anything they're required to do, they have to be built in. And this is probably a good time to mention that. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I want you all to see, because you all won't have really jurisdiction over it. It's kind of like whenever we do a record plat for a major subdivision, where on the record plats, I'm the last one who signs it. So everybody else is involved, whether it's water, sewer, roadways, all that kind of stuff. They sign it first, then I sign it. When an entity comes to you guys for a permit to develop a site like this, you know, there are other things in here, like a utility plan, where other people will take a look at that development, sign off on it, and then it's just a checkbox for you guys. Oh, you did your due diligence here. Cool.
And met the standards.
Yes. You all won't, be part of it, but whoever is the most appropriate official sign off on those, I'll say, hey, you signed off on those. Good. So for the stormwater and erosion stuff, whoever's, they'll bring that with us, and I or Dave will say, yes, this was signed off by, whether it's a letter or whatever.
Anything else on that section?
I mean, do you guys want me to change that stuff about the electrical grounded pre-engineered metal encased structure? Or do you want to say something more generally like shower structure?
Less specific.
Protection, they're gonna have drop doors. If something triggers, they're gonna drop doors and isolate anyway.
Yes, they're going to protect the
All right, Dennis.
Emergency contact information.
Yep.
No change there. Development plan.
So I added language in there. I actually grabbed it from the subdivision regulations. I reinvented the wheel so that I think it was Kirby who suggested there be some sort of timeline. That would basically just say from the time that I receive it, timer starts. So hopefully it's just it's just a check box according to these regulations. And after any rezonings that are necessary are take place, which you all will already see that. That's necessary. Which it probably will, since it's I-3 and there isn't a whole lot of empty I-3 in town.
These analysis and assessments. Who's going to do them and who's going to oversee them?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Reconstruction noise analysis, environmental impact assessment, community impact analysis.
That is not defined in the noise.
Page 7.
Page 7, Paul.
It'll be the developer, it's required as part of the development.
Your part plan is submitted to.
They have to do a pre-construction analysis and then a post-construction noise analysis after operations have been.
Is this 500 feet still relevant? That's on page 6.
Yeah, that's not a setback, that's just saying, any of the stuff that is listed there within 500 feet.
It needs to be included in the
There's a cultural and historic resource within 500 feet of the town.
It's included in that.
It will be included in the code. Gotcha. Oh, and on page 7, an emergency response plan, that should have been highlighted yellow. I'll put that in there for a draft view. Of course, these, utility plan, impact assessment, community impact analysis, emergency response plan, those would just be things that are submitted, and it's just a big deal. And like I said, an emergency response plan, I think is really important because since it says these will be in I-3, they'll be out in the county, and all of the fire departments out in the county are volunteer fire departments. Mm-hmm. And that, the site is large. So pretty much, I think any sort of data center development is going to have to work with the Maysville Fire Department. It might actually involve the Maysville Fire Department. But I think plans for it.
They're going to do it any plan to protect it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that and then again, check to make sure this is our plan. If they can't go down. So I would imagine they would have a plan to address a fire or something like that.
Anything else on that? Utility plan?
Yep, and again, this will be something that's
Checkbox.
people more knowledgeable than us would say, hey, yeah, this is great.
We'll need to check it with their business plans to be able to move forward and take that next step.
Oh yeah, all that work will be, which it should be a problem.
Point out to me, in that second paragraph about adequate power capacity is available. I think that Homer mentioned this in his presentation on the first night of the hearing. I think one of the things he said was it will be available. Yeah. So we may want to modify that from his.
Anything else in that section? Environmental impact assessment. We made some changes down there at the bottom.
Yeah, I fixed the language in there because it was more. I pulled this from the SES ordinance, and it was more focused on the design of that. It was more like focused on trucks just idling. So I fixed that, and I added the next paragraph for Kirby because he said he wanted it and told me he was happy with it.
What the water pollution impacts?
It basically just mirrors that previous paragraph for air.
Anything else in that section? Community impact analysis.
Yeah, it was mostly just the emergency plan and a road and services maintenance agreement. I did that because it was talked about construction. So if any such data center is going to be a large site, there's probably going to be a lot of construction traffic. And that's not very friendly to existing road. So that was part of the road and services maintenance agreement. And then there's the line item about the emergency. This is basically what I would call a juice worth the squeeze section. How is this going to affect the community and benefit the community, and your agreements with the local government. You like that?
Self-serving is empty, resurface the road where necessary, because they're bringing in electronics and other equipment. They don't want to go over the hill through the woods. So they'll be improving things as a self-service, which we would benefit from.
Anything else we want to add to that section? Complaint procedures.
So I pulled this and edited it, clearly not enough because it still mentions utility scale SES operation. I pulled it from the SES ordinance. Rick, I think you had a criticism of it. Before you say that, this is designed such that if there are any complaints, it kind of evens the scales between property owner and giant corporation. I think your criticism is that it's
Okay, the way it's written, the complaint could be issued from anybody. It's not an adjacent property owner, it's not somebody that's being affected by it. Anybody could file that complaint. If it's somebody directly affected, they're behind the problem.
What do you guys think about that? If you want a few minutes or a minute or two to read through it again. This is just to make sure that it's kind of a check on keeping an owner operator of such a potentially large development issue. If there are any issues, then there is a process for resolution of those issues. So, do you have any suggestions? I understand. Yeah, you don't. If somebody who lives on the other side of the county brings a complaint, that's right.
And I don't know, I won't speak to the court, but would they have standing anyway in that type of environment? I don't know how the court would rule on something like that.
Well, it specifically talks about arbitration, and they got to put up a fee. And I would think that the position of the complainant would be something that an arbitrator would take into consideration in rendering a decision.
Is it only the company putting up the fee for the arbitration?
No, it's the complainant who puts up the fee.
For that.
I remember specifically discussing this, and it was actually the late Tom Coe. He wanted the fee to be more to prevent people from just frivolously filing, because he was concerned about that very thing.
Yeah. That's the frivolous part, and just overwhelming the company with frivolous stuff is just counterintuitive to anybody.
It's basically just a balancing act. It's making sure that a company that can hire 1,000 attorneys, you can't just bury somebody. Right. Just to make sure you're not frivolous, but we, and you guys, you could increase that if that's what it's right.
What do you think, Rich?
$250 just seems like an awfully low fee, and it lends itself to frivolous complaints.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe either we do something that's more focused, or we increase the fee. We do one or the other.
And I also think the point of this process is not to get some sort of damage, it's just to fix the problem. You know, if there's a noise issue, you know, it'll prompt the fixing of the problem.
Right.
Because I think there are provisions in the noise section that talk about if there is a problem, which has to be. If we have noise limits and something's going above those limits, except for the exceptions, that's the problem.
Somebody picks 50 is the standard, and somebody comes in and says, I got proof of 75, then they've got standard. They come in and say it's 35, we don't like it. Which already falls within the ordinance of what you told them they can operate in.
But yeah, if somebody thinks that they're operating, yeah. What do you guys want to increase it to?
Is there such a way that you could, you know, we've been dealing with setbacks and that sort of thing, is there some way you could do it opposite of that, as a 1,000 feet or whatever distance away from the property line of the data center would limit somebody far into Mason County or something?
From a legal perspective, we increased it to $1,500, and they succeed. With the arbitration, get that money back to them. If not, there was something outstanding. Is that something arbitrator can do?
No, I look at the fee is just, that's what you got paid to get an arbitration. I think the arbitrator is dealing with resolving the complaint. That's getting pretty specific.
But it also addresses any frivolous type action too. Cost you more to file it, but if you
We could put that in there. Arbitrator finds in favor of the complainant, they get their feedback.
be part of the zone, part of the agreement.
So increase the fee and put that language in?
Yeah.
You want it to be?
Protect both parties.
What do you want it to be?
I suggest 1,500.
Okay, so to derail the conversation. 60 DBA, person there in the sensitive use area has a complaint. So they follow this complaint process, although they're within the sensitive use area. But this log is only checked every 2 years. By the joint planning or the.
Well, I think it would be checked if there was a complaint. I mean, there would need to be findings to see if
Action would take place, and the judgment would take place, and that would be, you're looking at two different, one is on an ongoing basis, the other one, you go back and refer history and take a look at it, make sure it's being recorded.
Yeah, 'cause I'm all for, obviously for protecting citizens, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to, so if it comes by, they're running at 65 or something, maybe, and we're like, hey, this is wrong. I mean, is that something that's taken care of relatively quickly?
But,
I mean, is that something, do they call George Larger and be like, hey, man, they're too loud? And you go out, and then it's reviewed at that point, or how does this work? Because right here, this seems to be very a procedure in here, but I'm still not, if it's being too loud, I think it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. And going through this process of arbitration, I
But
think
it's 60 days, it's not done within 60 days, they can't straighten it out, it's got to be done within 60 days.
so what happens if you have to
Well, we need to prove it somehow.
Right.
They can be criminally prosecuted.
Which I'd have to gather evidence to do that.
Right. So I'm playing my electrical car at 3 a.m., way too loud, has a certain neighbors. And of course, then you submit a complaint to you, and then you go out and investigate. Next night, if I told me at 3 a.m., then you'd be like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Yeah, I'd probably ask them to gather some evidence, because I'm not usually awake.
I'll leave it by.
Well, I think, actually, in that case, I think the police would actually, they
Go
would
ahead.
investigate, yes, because they're the ones who usually, there was a case a few years back in a business where they were violating the noise ordinance, and that's
Okay. I'm just trying to understand it. I'm not,
Yeah.
I just don't know. Okay, so I guess basically in the county, the sheriff would be calling, the deputy would go out and think, wow, they were talking about it.
Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah. Right now, there's no noise limit, so.
Oh, okay.
This would be unique to this particular one,
Yeah, okay.
which is why it has.
And I think that if this thing goes to arbitration and the arbitrator finds in favor of the complainant and it's not remedied, then George has the same ability to criminally prosecute.
Okay.
So,
But I think, so if after 60 days there's no resolution, that's when arbitration would start. So I have 60 days to try to fix this.
By trying to
Well, contact them, say there are concerns, let's take some sound readings, et cetera, when the sheriff does that.
Okay. There's obviously stuff being done in those 60 days. They're just not running full bore and
Right. And then if there's no resolution, if it continues to happen, arbitration.
Gerald, I think you were bringing up a point about
Whatever you want to make it up, everybody goes crazy filing the complaints, and so what they're talking about is,
So it might be a good idea
So let me make sure I understand this. So if somebody files a complaint, they pay $1,500, files a complaint. The company takes care of it within 60 days. They don't get their money back.
then only $1,500 if they go to arbitration.
Correct. So if someone makes a complaint, the company is supposed to interact with the complainant. And if the complainant doesn't get satisfaction after that time, they can file a request for arbitration with George, put up the fee, and then that's where that. And that's something that they have to submit to. Well, I mean, the ordinance requires it. So, but to Gerald's point, it might not be a bad idea to draft up something. Say, putting some kind of language in there about if you have an ownership interest in property, or if you have an interest in real property adjacent to the data center, or within what do you think is a reasonable distance?
You're basically saying,
maybe too complicated.
If you're an adjoining property owner,
Joining, maybe, what if there's a piece of property that's 500 feet from the property, not adjoining it, but 500 feet from it? I think that individual.
what if there was a sliding scale on the arbitration fee based upon whether or not you were an adjoining property owner? Make the fee $500 if you're a property owner, and $2,500 if you're not, something like that.
In And again, that's only if it goes to arbitration, which is
Correct.
not, yeah.
I'll put some thought into it. Well, you're just trying to determine whether or not somebody is standing. So if somebody in the next county over doesn't make a complaint just because they want to take advantage of the situation. There was also, right there at the end of that too, there was a new little paragraph that talked about the planned on-site storage of materials and equipment that may exacerbate the scale of an emergency or delay emergency services response to emergency. Fuel, battery storage, etc. If you want, I can put that underneath, closer to the emergency plan. Or no, that's probably not even be in the procedure, that should be something. Yeah. All right, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of.
We almost got a page, yeah.
Must have been a 429 on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can move.
Anything else? So Michael did bring up the decommissioning plan again. I don't know, what do you guys, I mean, if it's an enclosed facility and it's just disused for a while, you know, the reason why we had it for the SES stuff is so that after, let's say an SES developer put solar panels on 1,000 acres, and after 40 to 50 years their lease was up, they didn't want to operate that facility anymore. And so there was a plan and a fund so that they would remove their equipment and then the land would go back to being agricultural again. There's a development up south of Hillsboro, and I was discussing this with someone recently, where the way they did it right, it looks like if you just remove the solar panels, it would just look like, you know, they didn't put a whole lot of pavers down the road, they just removed the stuff and left. It would look like farmland. This is not going to be farmland. It would be good. Yeah, it would be buildings that, years, they might be used, but, you know, the equipment in it is going to be sheltered for the most part.
I've kind of wrangled with this idea myself, and reading back through Mr. Schall's testimony at the first hearing that we had, he mentioned that decommissioning plans were pretty typical. And I was surprised to read that, but just thought I'd point it out.
What do we do for silver and our reflection now?
Not that I know of. But that's, you know, they've been there since before my, well, fire, but no, they didn't have anything like that. They just typically did modify the building that they moved and didn't have it. If they were to move somewhere else, it would just, I mean, if they stopped, you know, operating, I mean, some of the equipment would probably be left there, or maybe not, but it would be enclosed. And, yeah, it wouldn't be like a solar facility where the stuff, you know, the elements that it just sat there.
Yeah, I don't know that it's something that's typical for standard industry. And we certainly don't zone it that way. I suppose the response to that could be that this isn't standard industry, and this is a new way. I think you all could go either way.
Do you want me to come up with some language and you guys can either accept it or reject it?
I think so.
Just go up there and check.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention. It was about the complaint procedure, something that Michael mentioned. He talked about a good neighbor clause. You know, he said he thought about maybe incorporating some sort of language so that if a company fails to comply with the minimum standards of the ordinance, that the predefined neighbors would have the right to enact a good neighbor clause, and if they didn't fix the issue, you know, maybe they'd be required to agree to purchase the neighboring land at like 120% of the value. I would rather try to resolve the issue, but.
That's a large part of that fall back in complaint procedure?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather the issue, like, let's just say it's this noise, for example, I would rather it be fixed because.
It has to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the ordinance.
So that was just something I thought of. The Michael thought was, you know, an idea.
All right. Anything else on that?
Okay, just so I was going to edit the development. Take a look at combining these. Either eliminate part of the development plan chapter, amend the sensitive use definition that Michael suggested. Better define the setback from a sensitive use. Sensitive use, 300-foot setback from 350. Or yeah, 350. And then 200 feet otherwise. I need to edit that. Remove that noise setback paragraph. There's something else on page 6. I don't know if my notes are. I'll understand. Let's see. Well, it has something to do with amending structures on page 6. Will be available on page 7. Michael said that. Complainant gets the money back if the arbitrator finds in favor. Language for the complainant understands it. Move that on-site storage paragraph that's on page 12 and then come up with it. Is there anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I suggest we meet next Wednesday again, give George time to put the final thing on this.
Well, I cleared the regular meeting times 2 Wednesdays, so that it would be the 4th. So I need time to do this, and you guys need time to review it. I don't think that's possible.
We're really at the 4th. That's our regular meeting anyway.
Yeah. So we'll have the meeting at 5:30. I think someone's actually going to be in here at 5:30, but I was told I can start setting up, and they might even be out here before that. But I cleared that today with Shelley.
So that would be our standard meeting day.
Do you all think it would be appropriate to put in here some kind of language regarding, so far as setbacks are concerned, that the developer would have the option to negotiate with adjoining property owners, get their permission in writing to reduce the setback insofar as that adjoining property owner is concerned? And I would think if you've got, let's say that an adjoining property owner shares 1,000 feet of boundary with the developer, doesn't care, they just pay for whatever reason, if it's less than 200 feet. I think it's appropriate for the developer to be able to get their permission in writing, maybe make it worth their while to get a reduction, and so that way they could put more of their stuff up against that boundary and be more efficient in usage of the space.
How would that work on property transfer?
Well, the subsequent property owner will be down.
Yep. And I think we have to define the value
just saying that they can negotiate it down, that too much like a variance. I think we would have to define the number, saying it's 350 from a sensitive use, it's 200 feet otherwise, but if an adjoining property owner enters into an agreement, because there's language, I think, in the
model ordinance.
Yeah, the model ordinance that talks about this. But I think we would have to
Put a floor.
yes.
Well, I would think the floor would be the I-3.
Yeah, I think it'd be 50, because it isn't 50.
I think it's 100 in front, 50 all around. Yeah, and that's, just between the two sides of the wall and that. They're different.
For some of the trees and fence and all that anyways, right?
Yeah, I think it's required to be 20 feet inside that 50 feet.
Would we have to endorse that as
No.
James?
It is something they should declare when they come to get their permit, I think.
And if you all think that's complicating things too much, that it's just a call.
I can always add the language and you guys can
Add the language,
86 it.
Yeah.
because we won't have to deal with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, for the land.
Anything else?
So just our next item of business is future meetings, so are we okay with the 4th?
It's a regular meeting.
That's regular meeting. Is it going to be here or over there?
It'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a regular meeting, but it'll be a special meeting
Yeah.
because it's here as opposed to our regular meeting spot.
Special location, right?
A special regular.
And real quick, just so you know, we're having an unrelated rezoning public hearing on March 4th.
Okay.
Just so you all know.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion to adjourn.